Welcome to Who is God? A contact with God is enough to revolutionize you forever. This book intends to demonstrate the existence but also the nature or the attributes of a supreme being who is the creator of everything. He is the merciful and righteous judge who will bring into judgment all the deeds of each creature from the first to the last at the end of our days. Although many believers profess to know God, they deny Him in their actions, come to the real knowledge of the existence of God, and begin therefore experience a tremendous and positive change in your way of speaking, thinking, and behaving, and of living in general. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I will also reject you from being praised for me. Because you have forgotten the law of God, I also will forget your children. Hosea chapter 4 verse 6. Dedication. I dedicate this book to the Almighty God for His wisdom and knowledge. 4 words. The notion of the word God has been misunderstood for long and by many people. Scientists have searched him through the apparatus many times and speculated about his existence with their scientific knowledge. But since then, they have never seen him with their human eyes, neither with their telescope, because God is merely and only a spirit. How many people are praying every day a God that they don't really know, that they have never seen, and have never come to the full knowledge of His attributes or tested them? The question we should ask ourselves is this: can we worship and please God without knowing exactly what He likes or dislikes? We believe in God not because we have seen Him, but because He exists, not because He is. The more people have tried to blindfold and embarrass others about this notion of supreme being, the more voices have risen to demonstrate that God doesn't exist and that there is no life after death. The more the proof of His existence and the understanding of His attributes become more and more clear. We have been so impatient with God to the point that our misconception about His nature, our problems, suffering, and lack led us to question many times the existence and power of that supreme spirit. If God exists, why can't He put an end immediately to all the troubles of the world? Does God care about our pain? Does it see when our world is about to fall? When tears are streaming down from our eyes? Does He care when people, friends have abandoned us and said bye-bye to us? When diseases are knocking at our doors? When people are dying under the threat of bullets? When an airplane crashes? Or when a bomb strikes an area? Or when an act of kamikaze kills a lot of people? It seems clearly to me that today when people manufacture something, they accompany it with a handbook just to help the user know how to use the invention easily and sweetly. The same thing applies to God, our manufacturer. He created us not because He wanted His creature to suffer. Problems come just because we don't know who He really is, and we don't follow the manual which He gave us, which is supposed to guide our life. Knowing God, that's to say knowing His nature and obeying His commandments, are therefore more important than our prayers or just believing that He exists. In this book, we are going to explore all the attributes of this God to remove once and for all the misconceptions about Him. We are going to demonstrate that life continues after death and that there is also a final judgment. Welcome to Who is God? Welcome to His true knowledge. Content. 4 words. Acknowledgements. God is a spirit creator. God is a keeping covenant and faithful God. God is a God of holiness and righteousness. God is an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent God. God is a God who tests and blesses. God is a God of wisdom. God is the God of love and forgiveness. God is a God of warning, patience, and judgment. References. Acknowledgements. I would like to thank my parents for financing my education, as well as all the people who have contributed to teach me from one way of another. A warm thank to all my friends who have been a great help to me both financially and morally. Eventually, my thank goes to all those who will make this book a successful one. Point 1. God is a spirit creator. Scientists have tried over and over to demonstrate the origins of heaven and earth, how the nature and how its components have come to existence. Many theories have been developed for centuries, upon which the growth of many knowledgeable people relies. What is fascinating and true about all this demonstration is that all creatures come from the combination of these smallest particles called atoms, which are parts of everything, whether simple or complicated, small or great. According to the theory of Big Bang, which is currently admitted by scientists, the world originated from a great explosion that took place some million years ago, and according to the theory of Darwin, men evolved from monkeys and all species from natural selection. Although those theories based on human approaches and knowledge have tried to demonstrate the source of the creation of everything, they all have their limits. They didn't explain plainly the source of everything. For instance, why did the Big Bang occur? Who caused the explosion? Where does the universe come from? If men were coming from monkeys, why didn't they continue to evolve today? The first man and woman were probably like monkeys, but were not certainly monkeys. Who created the earth and all that is therein? Who created us? Even if men have evolved from monkeys, where does those monkeys come from? Today, with the advancement of science and technology, we can admit that all creatures are made of billions of atoms. It is possible to believe that all those atoms couldn't combine themselves randomly to bring into existence all creatures. How many atoms have we on this earth? They are countless. Why are they not combining today randomly to form new creatures? We need to humbly reflect and admit that there is a powerful being behind the scene of creating everything. A wonderful God who is more knowledgeable than us, who is a mighty spirit and know all the secrets of the universe, who used his power to cause the Big Bang and commanded the atoms of the earth to combine in a logical way to form each creature according to its pattern. You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things. By your will they exist and were created. Revelation chapter 4 verse 11. According to the Bible, more precisely the book of Genesis demonstrates clearly that God is a spirit who created everything. This chapter of Genesis is reliable because it has been written by Moses himself, a man who was trained in the first school of Egypt and was, as a matter of fact, considered as intellectual of his time. This man couldn't explain how the universe came into existence by basing his analysis on his limited knowledge, unless he had been inspired by God, the manufacturer himself. Let us recall that Moses was a man who used to communicate with God mouth to mouth. He certainly received all his commandments and inspiration from him. Exodus chapter 33 verse 11. I was the man who saw the back of God. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. Exodus chapter 33 verse 23. It was a divinely inspired intellectual who could explain clearly the source of the creation of everything. Let us recall that it was Moses brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, not with sweat and weapons, but by the power of God on eagle's wings. According to the book of Genesis, the Spirit of God is the creator of everything that existed on earth. God firstly created heaven and then the earth by his power. This chapter does not explain exactly how they were made, but explains the chronology of the creation. Apart from Moses, many people also admitted that God is the founder of the heaven and earth. Psalm 102 verse 25, Isaiah 48 verse 13, Zechariah 12 verse 1. Even though Moses didn't give us all the details of the creation, we have to wait many years before other prophets affirm that the earth was created by God when He made a circle on the surface of the waters. Job chapter 26 verse 10, Proverbs chapter 8 verse 27, Isaiah 40 verse 22. It means that God made the earth round and set its boundary, which has been confirmed later by scientists that the earth was round. Do you know that Galilei was considered an heretic because he developed this theory that the earth was round, and he was right? Did you know that many were thinking that the earth was flat and were wrong before the creation of heaven and earth? The universe was a place full of waters. It means that the actual world where we are living and the heaven were full of water. Darkness was everywhere. The earth nor the heaven was without any form, if not covered with water. The Spirit of God was hovering over the face of waters. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. God first used the power of His Spirit to create the sun in the purpose of scattering the darkness. The next step of the creation consisted in making the heaven. According to the book of Genesis, the heaven was created from a firmament. The purpose of creating that firmament was to divide all the waters into two, so that there will be a water that is above the firmament but also under the firmament. It was probably the creation of this firmament from the small particles that resulted in the Big Bang. It was probably the creation of this firmament from the small particles that resulted in the Big Bang. It means that the Big Bang doesn't explain only the origin of the earth but the heaven as well. It was the water under the firmament that God gathered into one place to form the seas, lakes, rivers, leaving there for a dry land named earth. Job 38 verse 1 to 30. This is confirmed when the Israelites were fleeing before the Egyptians, when they had not any other choice if not to face an angry Red Sea before them. The Spirit of God intervened in a miraculous way to the point that the Red Sea was parted into two, leaving a dry land in the midst of the wall of waters. God was able to do that. He certainly used His power to gather the waters of the earth into specific places. The God who created everything was certainly more advanced in scientific knowledge and power than us. For those says the Lord, who created the heavens, who is God, who formed the earth and made it, who has established it, who did not create it in vain, who formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is no other. Indeed, my hand has laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand has stretched out the heavens. When I call to them, they stand up together. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Isaiah 45 verse 18, 48 verse 13, and chapter 55 verse 9. He knew exactly what he was doing. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, measured heaven with a span, and calculated the dews of the earth in a measure, weighed the mountains in scales, and the hills in a balance? Was directed the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselor has taught him? Isaiah 40 verse 12 to 13. After the creation of the earth, He made the first seeds of the herbs, trees, plants to spring forth, because He knew how to gather the atoms together to give them a real and specific meaning. At each step of His creation, God was happy, but wanted to bring more perfection. He made the stars, the moon, in order to bring a little light during the night. After all these things, God was not relentless in His doing. He kept on being creative. He created all the creatures of the sea, then the birds of the sky, and the animals of the earth. Why did He firstly make all these things? Because He wanted to prepare all the necessary conditions to welcome the first man and woman. He didn't want them to lack anything, if not to live a happy and prosperous life.